Whoa. Whoa. All right.
Minnesota, baby.
CD. I'm just gonna let you take over this. The over-under's at 7. It was at 6.5. And if you were like, this guy, you could have gotten it at 6.5 for an absolute value piece. So I guess that kind of tells you where I stand, but where are you at with these Gophers?
There was a reason this was probably the most bet, one of the most bet futures in college football was because it was only at 6.5 for a team in Minnesota that the last 3 full seasons they've played, they've won eight or more regular season games. And realistically, yes, they did lose 3 crucial guys. You have them listed here: John Michael Schmitz, Terrell Smith, Mo Ibrahim are huge guys, 6-year guys that were core pieces of that team. But I mean, PJ Fleck has done a really, really good job with its roster, filled some holes in the transfer portal. Offensive line recruiting and development is fantastic. The schedule, yes, it's a tough draw, right? 28th, I don't even think does it that justice because your draw from the East is Ohio State and Michigan, and then Michigan State, obviously, which I think should be a win. But it's not gonna be easy to get to 7-8 wins. To me, this is an over play because I don't see him going 6-6. I really don't. Worst case scenario, I push at 7-5, but I think 8-4, 9-3, especially if you go to UNC week 3 and you get a win there. I mean, that what that does to your over under value, your over value is huge, right? They got a really, really good roster, starting with quarterback Ethan Kaliakmanis, most talented QB they've had in a while there. They changed their offensive coordinator. He's gone. Kirk Schrocken to Rutgers. We'll talk about later. You got a new co-offensive coordinator, but it's really going to be Greg Harbaugh, who's from Western Michigan, coming over, was a tight ends last year with Minnesota, promoted from within to offensive coordinator, and will probably call plays there. But yeah, I am very excited to be a Minnesota fan right now. And yeah.
Uh, okay. Well, let's talk about their defense. I do want to bring up they lose Terrell Smith, really good corner. Thomas Rush, who's okay. They lose Mariano Sori. What does that name do for you?
It enrages me. I won't lie to you. I had to sit there in the freezing cold last year and watch him blow the game against Iowa, play after play, and let Sam Laporta look like freaking George Kittle. And I get it. Sam Laporta's a stud, and he'll be really good in the NFL. But, I mean, some people say, like, you lose a veteran linebacker, how are you going to replace him? No, it doesn't matter. Whoever's in there is going to be way better than Mariano Sori, and they're going to be probably more athletic. It's probably going to be Ryan Seelig from Western Michigan to transfer, but they also got 2 young guys who they really, really like, who had great springs in Devin Williams and Maverick Boronsky, guys that could step in and maybe aren't physically ready right now, but come, September 1st or even October, November, they're going to be ready to play and contribute really good for this defense there. Joe Rossi is a monster. The fact that we still have my defense coordinator is a blessing. I know Notre Dame had some interest with him. He just likes his life in Minnesota. He likes PJ Fleck working for him. Ever since he's been promoted, our defense has been awesome. It's gone from bad to really, really good, and it was great last year. I get it. It was top 10 with a terrible offensive schedule in terms of the quarterbacks we played, but it doesn't matter. And I think that the weak part of last year's defense was defensive line. They had zero pressure on QB all year. And yes, Thomas Rush leaves, who was supposed to be your starting, rush end for him, supposed to be your best rush end, but he wasn't really that good, kind of regressed, had a disappointing senior season. But I think a lot of those defensive line guys that were younger improved as the year went on, and they seem to have improved again in spring, and we'll do that in fall camp, hopefully. So, yes, it's a lot of the similar guys in the group there, but I think they're going to take a big jump forward, especially on the defensive line because of the coaching. You change coach from Brick Haley to Winston DeLabatior, I believe his name is. I totally butchered that. He's a really young guy, really, really energetic, awesome dude. And they even brought in some analysts, some pass rushing analysts to come in for him to really get that technique for your edge rushers and your defensive linemen. So yeah, I'm excited this year for the defense and the offense there.
Yeah, I trust Joe Rossi, but when I look at the depth on the secondary, I don't love it. Can you convince me?
I'll say our safeties are gonna be really, really good. I think you and I both agree Tyler Nubin is a stud. He will be a early day two kind of guy in the mold of Antoine Winfield Jr. A little bit bigger, a little bit, stronger than he is, but he's a ball hawk back there, always around the ball, making plays left and right. And then his partner, Jordan Howden, who's a 4-year starter there as well, he's gone off the NFL. Stepping in will be Darius Green, who is a hard-hitting, fly around the ball, strong safety for him. Going into year 3, he had a really, really good bowl game and then a great spring as well. They've been behind him for a while, just waiting for the right opportunity for your safety depth to open up. Ed nickel, you bring in Jack Henderson, a transfer from FCS, who's a big-bodied dude, looks the part, had a great spring as well. Very productive player down at Southeast Louisiana. And then behind him will be a smaller guy, Greg McDonald, comes back home to Minnesota he was at Iowa State, then transferred to Auburn, coming back, battled some injuries there. He still has to get a waiver, to play on this year to be eligible because it is a second transfer. Who knows with the NCAA? We'll see what they rule. They still haven't ruled on it, and August 1st is coming up soon here. The depth you're referring to is at corner. Justin Wally is the returning guy. He'll be an all Big Ten kind of guy on one side. On the other side is your problem because you lose Terrell Smith, and you also had Beanie Bishop, and you also had Ryan Stapp, who were your third and fourth corners last year, all gone. Beanie Bishop transferred to West Virginia, and Ryan Stapp medically retired. So that automatically bumps your redshirt freshmen that probably aren't ready to play and getting all the reps there in the spring. So what Minnesota did was they went out in transfer portal. They got 2 guys they really, really like, but we'll see about them from smaller schools. Trayvon Jones from Elon and Tyler Bride from Georgia Southern. We'll see about them. They obviously have a lot of experience, but playing in the Big Ten, a little bit different than playing from the SCS and even the Sun Belt, which I love the Sun Belt, but it remains to be seen. That's the big question mark there. Is that other cornerback spot in the secondary there?
Yeah, I really like this team. That's why I took it at 6.5. 7 might be a little too rich for my blood, but sorry we got it early, right? I think Mo is now I like Sean Tyler, I like Zach Evans, I don't know if I love Bryce Williams, but he's there. He's a decent running back. Mo was different though, man. I mean, you lose your all-time leading rusher in Minnesota history, and that's a problem. I mean, he was a really, really, really good football player. What does that do to your team, right? If you can't run the ball at some point, right? Can we trust Ethan Kelly-McManus to dish the ball to guys like Daniel Jackson, who I think is really good? Chris Bell, people forget his back, who's really good. Elijah Spencer looked really good in spring. Corey Crooms is a guy that I think people maybe are higher on than they should be, but is also a very, very good football player, right? So I don't know. What do we think about that off? Like, can you trust this team to run the ball? And 2, if they can't run the ball in a game, can you trust them to throw the ball?
I do trust the team to run the ball. I think Mo is a huge loss. Mo Abraham was so fun to watch. It seems like he was there for forever. Everything he did always made the offensive line look good, and he never had negative plays. He broke tackles. He barely fumbled, except in that Iowa game.
Iowa game.
Which is tough. Which he ran for over 200 yards, and he would have been a hero, except we lost that game. The problem will be is replacing Mo up the middle and your 3 interior guys in the offensive line, including John Michael Schmitz, who I talked about earlier against Michigan, was probably the best center in the country. He's at the Giants now. You also lose your left guard and your right guard, Chuck Filiaga, right guard, left guard, Axel Rushmeyer, gone, graduated, kind of in the NFL, UDFA kind of guys. What they did is they slid your right tackle, Quinn Carroll, former high recruit, into right guard, where he probably fits a lot better, more of a mauler, run blocker, physical guy, not as quick to handle these edge rushers in the Big Ten. And so your right guard you feel good about. Your center is going to be a 6-year guy, Nathan Bowe, who you feel good about, but not great. Obviously a big step down from John Michael Schmitz. Left tackle still is going to be Ariante Arize. And then left guard and right tackle is the 2 spots up for grabs. Right tackle, if I had to guess, it's going to be Martez Lewis. A little bit better pass blocker than JJ Cadet. And JJ Cadet has to get healthy to actually compete for snaps. And it seems like he hasn't been able to do that all 5 years he's been on campus here. Left guard is interesting. You're going to have Carter Shaw, a 6-year guy. Wow, I'm totally blank. Tyler Cooper, I'm sorry, 5th-year guy at left guard. And then also the early enrollee freshman, Greg Johnson. So on the O-line, you'll be inexperienced up the middle, but they'll be old dudes. A lot of these guys are 5th, 6th, 4th-year players on the O-line.
That's just what happens there, though. That's just what happens in Minnesota.
Finally, we're finally at a point now where we're not having to rely on freshmen to come in and save us, which is good. The thing is with losing Mo is last year your strength was your O-line and your running backs, and your weakness was probably your pass core, your receiver core, and probably quarterback, because you had Tanner was hurt, and then Ethan was coming in who wasn't quite ready yet, and in an offense that didn't really fit him. So that's why they ran the ball a bajillion times, and it was probably the most boring team in Power 5. However, you had a fundamental shift in offense of philosophy, and you saw it in the spring. You heard the coach talking about it. You saw it in the recruiting that they got. They able to get a guy like Elijah Spencer, a guy like Corey Crooms, who had other options, really, really good options, and decided to come to Minnesota, not known for passing, but who is dedicated to passing the ball. The thing is when that does happen, where you do hit a stall in your passing game, what does PJ do? Does he trust Ethan, the young guy, and let him battle through his growing pains? Or does he turn to the run game again like he has past couple years? I think that'll be the difference between, an 8-win season and maybe a 9 or a 7-9 win season. How well the passing game does. The running back room, I don't love Sean Taylor. He's kind of an interesting runner. He's totally different than Mo. Mo was a guy that you knew you were going to get positive yards from. Wasn't going to break anything more than 15 yards. As soon as he got, from 4 yards to 12 yards, he did his damage, running over guys, making guys miss, fighting for extra contact. Sean Tyler's a little bit more twitchy, a little bit more, good burst kind of guy. But once he gets in the secondary, see ya. The problem is his vision sometimes is questionable, where he can try to bounce plays and make them turn them into big rushes where you lose, 4 or 5 yards instead, which I know PJ's going to hate when he does that. And then you have 2 freshmen that get you excited, Zach Evans and Darius Taylor, that the coaches are raving about. And then also, Bryce Williams, a veteran guy, more of a pass protection guy. Probably won't get more than 3 touches a game. So we'll see. I think, like I said, this will look like a new Minnesota team, at least for the first couple weeks until they really get tested. And we'll see what PJ Fleck, what he does. Does he revert back to his old ways, or does he stick with his newfound offensive scheme?
Right. I think this is a good team. It's a bummer about Story Marin, though, right? Such a bummer. But, let that be a lesson. I don't know who needs to hear this, but not every player that is voted all Big Ten or all conference is elite. All right. I don't know who needs to hear that, but especially at linebacker.